Glory to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to another episode of City of Desert. And once again, we are reading from the first volume of the Philokalia and the writings and the sayings of Evagrius of Pontus. And we are now moving on to another series of his writings called Text on Prayer. And so we are picking up today in the volume on page 57, if you're following along in the text, with saying number 1. Evagrius writes, should one wish to make incense, one will mingle, according to the law, fragrant gum, cassia, aromatic shell, and myrrh in equal amounts. These are the four virtues with their full and balanced development. The intellect will be safe from betrayal. So Evagrius speaks to us here of the four foundational virtues in the spiritual life as he sees them. And beyond this, he tells us that they must be kept in a kind of balance with each other. When they are united, rise like incense to heaven from the soul who is guided and directed by them. And so it's important for us to understand what these are. He doesn't even mention them by name, assuming that they would be understood. But for all of us, it would be helpful, I think, just to look at each of them and unpack them a little bit. The first is prudence, or a kind of discretion in the spiritual life, that we are called to learn over the course of time how to distinguish thoughts and their origin. Does a particular thought come to us from God? Does it arise out of one's own heart or the unconscious? Or is it directed towards us by the provocation of the evil one, by the demons? And so prudence, this capacity to discern, to discriminate between our thoughts, is an essential aspect of the spiritual life. And again, in our prayer and in the ascetic life as a whole, becomes essential to balance with the other virtues so that we are moving in the right direction, that our energy is directed toward God. The second would be courage, so steadfastness in the spiritual struggle, that it is often long and difficult. We do not often see in the spiritual life immediate fruit from our labors, something like fasting or spiritual reading or keeping vigil, breaking the night for sleep. We might struggle with this over the course of the years, but only see the fruit of it, the humbling of the mind and the body, the forming of the mind, and the humbling of our bodily appetites is something that bears great fruit for us, where we gain strength over our passions and over our bodily appetites. So it includes enduring the temptations that come upon us, resisting the evil one, and not fleeing from the battle. So not being overcome by fear or anxiety when the battle grows fierce, but having the courage, having the steadfastness to remain and wait upon God. The third is self-control. So restraint, a kind of sobriety within the spiritual life, especially in regard to our bodily desires and our impulses. It's an inner stillness that keeps the soul from being scattered. So self-control, that we don't allow ourselves to be scattered in the spiritual battle itself. As we are waging this warfare, a kind of inner stability remains within us. And we have to protect and guard that as something that is precious, that often when anxiety or something of its sort arises within us, our minds and our hearts can become fragmented. Or if we don't see immediate fruit from our spiritual disciplines, we can fall into a kind of despondency. And so self-control allows us to maintain a sense of sobriety about the spiritual life as a whole. If we understand that we have to wait upon God, and that the spiritual growth that comes through the ascetic life can be slow and measured, then we learn to be patient. We become self-controlled. And finally, the fourth fundamental or foundational virtue for Evagrius is justice, something that we often don't hear about or spoken about very often without it being externalized. It's rather something that is directed internally. So it's a right ordering of the soul, of each part of the soul becomes in something that is in harmony with the other faculties of the soul. And so our life becomes aligned with truth and righteousness. So justice uh, at its heart is being in a right relationship with God. But internally, it is also having all the faculties of the soul working in harmony with each other, and these foundational virtues working in harmony with each other in order to direct us towards God as they can. If even one is lacking, the mixture, if you will, of the incense that he describes is off, and the mind becomes vulnerable again to the attack of the demons. And so let us pray as we begin this section of Evagrius on prayer, that we would seek to have it rooted on this foundation of these fundamental virtues: prudence, courage, self-control, and justice. That all of these would lay the foundation upon which we would build our relationship with God and stability of mind and heart. Thank you, and God bless you, and have a wonderful day.